Leading figures from across the US political spectrum are paying tribute to civil rights pioneer Jesse Jackson, who has died aged 84. Jackson rose to prominence as a close associate of civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr. and was present when he was assassinated in Tennessee in 1968. He also ran for the presidency twice, with former President Barack Obama paying tribute to Jackson, saying, "We stood on your shoulders." President Donald Trump has described him as a force of nature and a good man.
We must share our burdens and our joys with each other once again. We must turn to each other and not on each other and choose higher ground.
His cause of death has not been confirmed, but in 2017, Jackson was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. In a statement, his family says he was a leader to the oppressed, the voiceless, and the overlooked around the world. Back in 2020, he joined Planet America following the death of civil rights leader John Lewis. He spoke with Licciardello and John Barron about modern America and how he would like to be remembered. Here's a section of that conversation.
But America, in a strange way, we got free in 1865. What happened was that the troops were removed in 1877. We went from slave masters to segregation masters, and they were very brutal. Blacks, separate equal, but blacks had no access to voting. I never saw black police until I was 20 years old in Greenville, South Carolina. I was arrested July 16, 1960, trying to use the public library. We couldn't be police, we couldn't be firemen, we couldn't be pilots, we couldn't drive buses. We lived on the criminality of states' rights. And the North tolerated it. Now truth across the earth is rising. People are fighting back. We're not going to take it anymore.
Reverend, you've spoken about some of the progress that's occurring. This does indeed seem to be a time of great potential for change. There's also a time of great fear. How optimistic are you about America at the moment?
I'm optimistic. You know, we had these mean spirits. When Nixon came with law and order, we just got the right to vote in 1965. We're not matured in our voting. Didn't know how to build coalitions, how to build tickets. Now there's a new maturity in voting and voting together. You know, 18-year-olds couldn't vote no serve in Vietnam. White women couldn't vote, couldn't serve on juries in the South. Native Americans could not vote, those who founded the country. You couldn't vote bilingually, Latinos. There's a new majority in America. That's why elected Barack Obama was the new majority. There's new consciousness, and people have a sense of themselves. We reject the idea of babies dying on the borders between America and Mexico. We reject those values. I'm optimistic about our future.
This week, of course, we didn't just lose John Lewis, but also another important civil rights leader in C.T. Vivian, as well as George Evers, who was a significant figure as well in the 1960s and 70s. You've delivered a lot of eulogies yourself over the years. I wonder, when your time comes, what would you like your eulogy to say?
I never stopped serving. I did my best against the odds. And when I did do my best, God's grace was sufficient. And I thank God for seeing a new world. I mean, I lived to see Mandela come out of jail, become president of South Africa, lived to see RC go back to Haiti, lived to see an African-American president of the United States of America, and lived to see a freedom rider who was beaten nearly to death in Athens, Alabama. Now, Horse is one of America's great heroes. I see change coming. It's dark, but the morning cometh. I wanted to be said that I did my best against the odds to make America better, to make the world more secure.
Well, let's get more on this. Nadine Smith is a civil rights activist and CEO of Colour of Change, and she joins us now from Florida. Nadine, thank you for your time. I just want to know what you've been thinking about in the hours since we learned that Reverend Jesse Jackson has passed away at the age of 84.
Honestly, listening to that interview, it's sort of overwhelming, and he got the eulogy that he wanted because he never did stop serving. And as we mourn the loss of this legend, it is also a call not just to grieve, but to action, because so much of the work that he has done in this country for decades is under attack right now. And so in some ways, it is a reminder of how far we've come and what the stakes are for us to show up for the fight that's in front of us right now.
As someone who has met him, can you describe what that was like for us to be in the same room as him?
Well, I actually met him for the first time in 1993, and it's part of the legacy of Jesse Jackson that he was such an inclusive person, the Rainbow Coalition. He was speaking at the 1993 March on Washington for LGBT rights, and he kicked off the morning stage. He was the leadoff speaker. And as the day went on, the crowd grew and grew, and he asked to speak again at the main stage. And nobody wanted to tell this legend no, and it fell to me as the co-chair of the march to go up to him. And as you can see in that picture, he's a big man, and he had one arm in a sling. And I walked up to him, and I figured out what I would say. I said, Reverend, if you get someone to swap who will give up their slot for you, we will put you on the main stage. And he stood there and he looked at me for a few moments, and then his good arm shot out. And for a brief moment, I just thought, I'm about to be, choked by this incredible leader. And instead, he pulled me into this hug, and he said, "Well played." And it felt like getting the nod from a mentor. But he was always someone who looked to enlarge the tent, to recognize that struggles were tied, and that everybody had a natural instinct to pursue freedom. And so in addition to giving him his flowers today and recognizing that he lived out that creed to be of service to the very end, I think the biggest slogan that I hold dear in this moment is keep hope alive. Mm-hmm. And that is what we do. And as the CEO of Color of Change, there's so much of what we are is based on him, quite literally. We were born out of Katrina. He was one of the most outspoken critics of the federal response to the Black community. His Operation Push was all about creating accountability for corporations, something that Color of Change continues to do. So his legacy is enduring, and it reverberates, and the lessons of the work that he did are needed now more than ever. So we are all mourning the loss of a giant, and also feeling the gratitude of that the lessons that he brought to the forefront, not just the moral authority, but the recognition that moral authority had to be combined with the power of the vote, the power of the purse, the power of community looking out for each other. And that's our roadmap for today.
And the conversation we heard with him from 2020, we listened to that just a moment ago, in which he was saying that he was optimistic. What do you think he would think about the current political climate now?
I think it would be all too familiar to him. As someone who stood on that balcony when Dr. King was killed in an era of assassination and political turmoil, I think it would be very familiar to him. But I also think what we see in Minneapolis, of people coming together, neighbors looking out for each other, of people organizing in their communities against an oppressive invading force fueled by the federal government, I think that would be familiar to him, and he would be inspired, as I am and all of us are, by the resistance to that. And in an unintended way, these attacks on our cities, these attacks on our values, these efforts to divide us against each other is actually building the very Rainbow Coalition that he touted, and bringing us together in really profound ways to ask, what does it mean to be free? What does it mean to be a democracy? What does it mean to be free people? And Americans are answering that call.
Nadine Smith, civil rights activist and CEO of Color of Change, joining us there from Florida. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning.
Thank you.